"Get her out before the investors arrive," Victor Harlan said, pointing at the maid holding a silver tray. The room went silent as Lena Brooks lowered her eyes and kept one hand over the small sketchbook hidden in her apron. Why would a billionaire ignore the one person who understood his failing project better than anyone in the room? What was she drawing while they laughed at her uniform? And why did one old signature on her late mother's letter make the whole deal dangerous? By nightfall, the woman they treated like background would become the only reason the tower could be saved, and the cost of listening too late would follow everyone home. "Mr. Harlan, the East Truss line is wrong." The words left Lena Brooks before she could pull them back. Rain tapped the windows above Seattle. At the center of the Alder Crown's boardroom, the glass model of Harbor Line Tower glowed beneath white lamps. Victor Harlan turned from the screen. "Excuse me?" Lena stood beside the service cart with a silver tray balanced in both hands. A wine glass tapped its rim once, a bright sound that traveled farther than her voice. Marissa Vale crossed the room. "Lena," she said, "this is not your floor anymore." "I'm sorry." Lena kept her eyes on the model. "The East Truss line. If the wind study is based on that spacing—" Grant Keller laughed from the far end of the table. "The maid is giving structural advice now?" A few investors looked down at their folders. One man adjusted his cufflinks. Victor glanced at Marissa. "Who authorized staff to remain?" "She was clearing service, sir." Marissa's fingers closed around Lena's elbow. "She's leaving." Lena let the tray settle against her waist. The metal was cold through her uniform. In the apron pocket, her sketchbook pressed against her ribs. "Please," she said, "ask him to check page 42. Grant's smile thinned. "Page 42 is a rendering index." "No," Lena said. "It was mislabeled." A chair leg clicked. Owen Price looked from Lena to the folders. His hand hovered above one copy, then dropped when Marissa turned. Victor's jaw set. "Get her out before the investors arrive." "They're already here," someone murmured. Victor's finger lifted toward the door. "Then get her out before she costs us the room." The tray rang again. Lena looked at the model. The east side, the impossible angle, the line her mother would have erased with one red stroke. For 1 second, the room vanished, and she saw Evelyn Brooks flattening paper under a yellow lamp. "Lena," Marissa whispered, "move." Carolyn Reed, 2 chairs from Victor, watched without opening her folder. Lena stepped back. Her shoe made no sound on the carpet. She passed the coffee station, the wall screen, the people who had decided she was furniture until she made noise. At the door, Owen reached for the handle. "Thank you," Lena said. He nodded, then glanced at her apron. The corner of the sketchbook had slipped free. On the top page was the same tower, corrected by a line no one had mentioned. Grant saw it too. "What is that?" Lena pushed the notebook down. "Nothing." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Stop." Marissa froze. Victor came around the table. Every person in the room followed him. "Show me," he said. Lena's fingers stayed over the pocket. The silver tray tilted, and one empty glass slid toward the edge. Marissa caught it. "It's personal," Lena said. Grant stepped closer. "If she has been copying restricted material, that is not personal." Owen looked at the folders again. Caroline opened hers, not to page 1, but to the index. Victor held out his hand. The old letter behind Lena's sketchbook crackled faintly. "Miss Brooks," Victor said, using the name above her heart. "What exactly have you been drawing in my boardroom?" Lena looked past his hand to the glass tower. "Not yours," she said. And this time, no one pretended not to hear. At 5:18 a.m., Rain had found the weak corner of Lena Brooks's kitchen window. She pressed a dish towel against the sill and moved her mother's letter beside a chipped blue mug. Evelyn's handwriting leaned sharply right. The kettle clicked. Her phone buzzed beneath envelopes. "Dad?" "The nurse moved my crossword," Raymond Brooks said. "You called it Dawn about a crossword?" "She writes in pen. That's hostile." Lena smiled, but her thumb stayed on the pharmacy bill. "I'll come after my shift." "You have investors today?" "The hotel does." "And you?" "I clean around them." A breath passed through the line. "Your mother said a room tells you what people are afraid of." Lena looked at the letter. "Then this room is afraid of rent." She hung up before he could ask. By 6:42, she entered the Alder Crown through the service door with wet cuffs and coffee burning her palm. The hallway smelled of lemon cleaner and cooling pastries. 4 clocks above the lockers ticked for London, New York, Seattle, and nowhere she could go. Owen Price stood on a step stool, fighting a crooked welcome placard. "Does this look level?" "No." "You didn't even pause." Lena touched the left corner. "Half an inch." He moved it. "You have a terrifying eye." "My supervisor calls it moving too slowly." "She's in a mood," he whispered. "Victor Harlan's people arrived tonight." Cream heels clicked through the double doors. Marissa Vale appeared, hair pinned smooth. "Everyone," she said, "today is not a day for personality. No jokes with guests. No opinions. If an investor asks directions, answer and disappear." Lena reached for her cart. "And Lena." "Yes, ma'am?" "Rainier Suite first. Corridor glass on 12. No conference level unless called." Lena nodded. Marissa's gaze dropped to the pencil case in Lena's tote. "Leave personal hobbies in the staff room." After she left, Owen mouthed, "Personal hobbies?" Lena tucked the case deeper. "Dust has geometry." At 8:05, the Rainier Suite smelled of cedar soap. June Mercer sat by the window in a lavender shawl. "Oh, thank heaven," June said. "I lost a folder. Blue tab. My grandson says I misplace things because I'm old." "Where did you last use it?" "That's what people ask when they don't know." Lena studied the suitcase. Umbrella by the heater. One chair angled wrong. "You read it by the window. Breakfast came. You moved the tray here." She lifted the room service menu. Under it lay a blue-tabbed folder. June stared. "Well?" "No, dear. You saw the room." A page fell from the folder, showing a rough garden pavilion. Lena caught it before it reached the carpet. Without thinking, she took the hotel pencil and redrew the roof line on the back of an envelope with 3 clean strokes. June watched her hand. "Who taught you that?" Lena froze. "My mother liked lines." Owen appeared with fresh flowers and stopped. "That's not a doodle," he said. Lena folded the envelope and gave it to June. "It will keep rain from pooling." June held it carefully. "Then I'll keep it." Owen lingered. "What?" Lena asked. He shook his head. "Just wondering what else people miss." Above them, Marissa's voice cut through the stairwell. "Remember, big people are arriving. Keep the background clean." At 9:36 a.m., the staff elevator opened onto 12 with a tired sigh and the smell of wet wool. Lena pushed her cart out. Fresh towels, glass spray, folded robes. Under the robes lay the envelope June Mercer had pressed into her palm. "Useful things should not be hidden," June had said. Room 1208 was empty except for rain ticking against the balcony rail. Lena stripped the bed, smoothed the sheet, then stopped when the hotel tablet blinked. Conference level. Private boardroom. Polished display glass. "That's not my floor," she said. Assigned by M. Savale. By 10:12, Lena stood outside the boardroom. Grant Keller's laugh came through first. Then Marissa's voice. The model must look untouched. Mr. Harlan wants first impressions clean. Lena knocked. Marissa opened the door. You're late. You told me no conference level unless called. I called. Inside, Harbor Line Tower sat under a glass cover, surrounded by boards showing parks, water, and glowing windows. Lena moved toward it with a microfiber cloth. Grant Keller stood by the projection wall, silver hair trimmed close. Careful, he said. That model costs more than a year of housekeeping. Lena kept the cloth moving. Then I'll use both hands. Grant smiled at Marissa. She only checked the seating cards. Lena's cloth paused over a presentation board. At the bottom, below a polished rendering, the name Grant Keller and Associates was printed in dark blue. Above it was a roofline, a slight curve where the tower met the sky bridge. Her mouth went dry. She had seen that curve on yellowing paper at her mother's kitchen table. Evelyn Brooks drew it while soup cooled, and Raymond read bills twice. Don't bend the boards, Grant said. I'm not. You're staring. It reminded me of something. Most glass towers do. It wasn't the tower. Grant's eyes sharpened. Marissa looked up. Lena. Lena touched the old letter in her apron. On the last page, Evelyn had written, They kept the lines. They lost the reason. Is there a problem? Grant asked. No. Good. Problems require qualifications. The sentence landed lightly. That made it worse. Marissa crossed to Lena and lowered her voice. I need this room finished in 7 minutes. Your father's insurance paperwork is still being processed, isn't it? Lena's hand stopped on the glass. Stability matters, Marissa said. It does, Lena answered. Grant capped a marker behind them. Some people are lucky to have stable work. Lena turned the cloth over. The clean side was warm from her palm. At the far table, a folder sat open to a concept history page. She caught one phrase before Marissa shut it. Inherited coastal language. Evelyn had written those words in pencil beside a failed sketch. Lena finished the glass. Each swipe erased her reflection and brought the model clearer. At the door, Owen stood outside with a tray of name badges. You okay? He whispered. Do you know where they keep old planning submissions? City archives, maybe. Why? Lena looked back. Grant was adjusting the board with his name below her mother's curve. No reason, she said. But as the doors closed, she unfolded Evelyn's letter enough to see the faded signature, and the ink looked less like memory than evidence. At 11:27 a.m., the glass cover over the Harbor Line model held one perfect fingerprint. Lena saw it while polishing the east face, a pale oval on acrylic left by someone who had leaned close. Under the cover, the tower rose from a miniature waterfront, silver ribs and blue windows. The sky bridge curved toward a second structure. Up close, the spacing was wrong. The east truss line sat too narrow by a fraction that looked harmless on a model and cruel in a storm. Do not breathe on it, Grant Keller said. She straightened. The support line here. Was the wind study updated after the bridge angle changed? Grant stopped sorting markers. Was that addressed to me? Marissa looked up. Lena, clean the cover and leave. I only need to know if page 42 is current. Grant laughed. Page 42. Owen stood in the doorway with mineral water, watching the model. Grant came beside her, close enough that his cologne cut through the polish. Do you often inspect engineering documents while carrying towels? No. Then today is special. The line should carry wider before the joint. Lena pointed without touching the glass. If the load shifts here, The bridge twists against the tower instead of with it. Marissa's cheeks tightened. Enough. Grant leaned toward the model, then away. It's a display object. Not a construction drawing. But the display matches the rendering. And you know this because? Lena's answer stayed behind her teeth. Her mother had circled this same mistake in red. Evelyn Brooks once wrote, "They kept the lines." I know lines, Lena said. Grant looked at Owen. You hear that? We have a line expert. Owen lowered the crate. One bottle rolled and tapped the table leg. Marissa stepped between them. Mr. Keller, I apologize. Lena misunderstood the task. I understood it, Lena said. The room cooled around those words. Grant took a banquet menu and flipped it over. Here, since we're discussing napkin architecture, draw it. Grant, Marissa said. No, let her. He placed the menu before Lena. Show us where the billion-dollar project offended housekeeping. The fingerprint on the cover caught the overhead light. If she refused, he would call her noise. If she drew, he would own the room anyway. She picked up a pencil. In 3 lines, Lena sketched the current truss. In 3 more, she widened the transfer path and marked the pressure point with a small X. The menu's gold border felt raised under her wrist. Grant's smile did not change, but his eyes did. That is not from the model, he said. No, it's from the problem. Marissa snatched the menu. This is inappropriate. Owen stepped forward. May I see it? No, Marissa said. Grant held out his hand. Give it to me. For half a second, the menu hung between them. Then Marissa passed it over. Grant folded it once, sharply, through the middle of Lena's lines. The sound was small. You should return to your cart, Grant said, and keep your drawings where they belong. Owen's jaw moved, but no words came. Lena picked up the polish bottle. Her fingers left a damp ring on the table. As she pushed the cart toward the door, the glass cover held the fingerprint, bright and untouched, exactly where the mistake began. At 12:04 p.m., the coffee station hissed like it was trying to warn somebody. Lena set 12 white cups on saucers, handles turned right, sugar centered, cream sweating in a silver bowl. The air smelled of espresso, lemon oil, and sharp new carpet. Behind the frosted doors, Grant Keller's voice rose. Marissa Vale appeared beside her. You were told not to engage. I answered a question. No. You stepped into a room where people have spent decades earning the right to speak. Lena placed a spoon beside a cup. It clicked once. Marissa lowered her voice. Any conversation with Mr. Harlan's guests goes through me. If they ask where the restroom is, you point. If they ask about that tower, you remember another floor needs towels. Yes, ma'am. Do you understand what your job protects? Lena glanced at the service door. The room. The hotel's reputation, Marissa said, and your position. The boardroom doors opened. Victor Harlan entered with 6 people around him, his coat dry despite the rain. Caroline Reed walked behind him, reading while moving. Ethan Rowe carried a tablet and a polite expression. Coffee, Victor said, not to Lena, but into the room. A junior assistant bumped the table. 3 folders slid down. Pages scattered across the carpet. Renderings, cost sheets, a wind map printout. I've got it, the assistant said, flushed. Lena knelt before anyone stopped her. Sequence numbers, matching tabs. Her hands moved quickly. Site plan, bridge study, revised elevations, investor summary. Page 42 sat under a glossy waterfront image, mislabeled again. Leave them, Marissa said. Lena set the last page on top and squared the stack. Ethan paused. That's the right order. Marissa smiled too brightly. Housekeeping gets excellent at sorting linen. It wasn't linen, Ethan said. Victor glanced over, but Grant arrived with a remote. We ready? Caroline looked at the stack, then at Lena. Did you study drafting? Marissa answered first. Ms. Brooks is dedicated to guest service. Lena poured coffee into Carolyn's cup. My mother did. Did what? Drafting. Grant's remote clicked twice. We should begin. Marissa's fingers pressed into Lena's sleeve. Cart. Now. Lena turned, but the cream bowl caught on the folder edge. Coffee sloshed from a nearby cup and spilled over the saucer, a brown ring spreading toward page 42. Lena caught the page before it soaked. Careful, Victor snapped. It's dry. She held it by the corners. Grant reached. I'll take that. Lena saw, for one breath, the diagram beneath the text. The East Truss spacing. Her thumb hovered over the corner, wanting to mark it. Ms. Brooks, Marissa said. Lena handed the sheet over. Grant slid it into the folder upside down. Owen, passing with bottled water, saw it. His eyes flicked from the page to Lena. Is something wrong? Carolyn asked. No, Victor said. We're losing time. Lena rolled the cart toward the service door. Behind her, Grant began speaking about stability, vision, and trust. At the threshold, Lena looked back once. Caroline had not opened the presentation. She was watching the coffee ring on the saucer, dark and spreading, while page 42 sat upside down in Grant Keller's hands. At 12:31 p.m., the first slide froze on the word confidence. Grant Keller clicked the remote twice. Nothing moved. On the wall screen, Harbor Line Tower shone in blue light while rain bent the windows behind it. Ethan Rowe leaned toward his tablet. The wind load appendix is not matching the current model. It does, Grant said. The bridge angle changed in June. Victor Harlan turned. Grant. It's a display discrepancy. The engineering set is current. Caroline Reed tapped page 42. Then why is the transfer line narrower here? Chairs creaked. A pen stopped scratching. From the service alcove, Lena heard every word while replacing cups no one had touched. The coffee smell had turned bitter. Her cart blocked half the doorway, and Marissa stood beside it like a lock. Keep moving, Marissa whispered. Grant drew in the air. The loads distribute vertically before the bridge begins. It is basic. No, Ethan said. The bridge pulls laterally first. Victor looked at him. Are you asking or telling? I'm saying I don't see the support for Mr. Keller's answer. Grant smiled. Because you manage numbers, Ethan. I manage buildings. Two investors glanced away. Lena reached for the banquet menus under the coffee urn. A pencil lay beside them. Marissa was watching Victor now. Lena slid one menu beneath a tray. The gold edge scratched under her wrist. She drew quickly. Tower, bridge, force path. A wider transfer, a second brace inside the service core, the stress point marked with a small X. Her mother would have used red pencil. Lena had only gray. Owen appeared with sparkling water. His eyes dropped to the menu. Is that? Don't, Lena murmured. Inside, Grant said, if anyone needs reassurance, the final report can be circulated after closing. After closing? Caroline asked. We're signing tonight. Victor said nothing. Owen set the bottles down, but did not leave. Lena folded the menu halfway, then stopped. Folding had broken her last drawing. She laid it flat on the lower shelf. Marissa turned. Why are you still here? Replacing service. Service is replaced. A glass slipped near the urn. Lena caught it before it fell, but the tray rang against the cart. Victor's head turned. Owen stepped forward. Mr. Harlan, I think there may be a simpler way to show the issue. Marissa whispered, Owen. He swallowed. On the cart. Grant crossed the room first. What is on the cart? Nothing official, Lena said. That is exactly the problem. He reached for the lower shelf. Lena moved the tray. The menu slid into view. Carolyn stood. Victor walked to the alcove. He did not touch the drawing. He only looked. Who drew this? No one answered. Rain clicked against the glass. Grant lifted the menu between two fingers. A Maid sketch on banquet stock. This is what we're pausing for? It's correct, Ethan said. Grant looked at him. Be careful. Caroline came closer. Where did you learn to see that brace? Lena felt the sketchbook in her apron. My mother drew buildings, she said. Grant's smile returned. Many people have mothers. Victor's eyes stayed on the X. The corrected line lay exposed under the boardroom lights, answering the question Grant had tried to bury. At 1:06 p.m., the service corridor felt colder than the conference room. Lena pushed her cart past linen bags and stopped at locker 17. Behind her, Marissa Vale closed the staff door, cutting off the investors' voices. Open it, Marissa said. Grant Keller stood by the time clock. Paul Sutter, the hotel guard, waited near the laundry chute, gray-mustached, eyes lowered. My locker? Lena asked. Hotel property used for personal storage, Marissa said. Grant held the banquet menu. Pencil lines showed beneath his thumb. Restricted material was discussed in a private meeting. Minutes later, an employee produced a drawing. I drew what I saw wrong. You saw confidential information. No, I saw a mistake. Paul's radio crackled, then died. Marissa extended her palm. Key. The key was on Lena's ring, beside the brass tag her father had given her. She had rubbed it smooth through 3 years. It warmed in her fist, then turned cold when she pulled it free. If there's nothing there, this goes faster, Paul said. Fast isn't the same as right. The key left a red mark across her palm. She placed it in Marissa's hand. Marissa unlocked the locker. Inside hung a spare blouse, black flats, a rain jacket, and a paper bag with crackers. On the upper shelf sat Lena's gray sketchbook. Beneath it lay Evelyn Brooks's letter. Grant reached first. Don't, Lena said. He paused. Then it matters. It belongs to my mother. Marissa handed him the sketchbook. Relevant items only. Grant flipped through pages. Small rooms, window details. Then the tower, again and again, not copied cleanly, but corrected, argued with in pencil. This is not a hobby, he said. Owen Price appeared at the corridor's end with an empty crate. Lena, Marissa snapped, back upstairs. Owen stayed. What's happening? An internal matter. Grant pulled out the old letter. Lena stepped forward. Paul moved between them without touching her. Please, she said, smaller than she meant. Grant unfolded the paper. The crease made a dry sound. This is dated 2008, he said. Harbor preliminary language. Where did you get this? My mother's box. Your mother's box contains project language from a confidential development file? The corridor smelled of bleach and damp cotton. Evelyn Brooks wrote those notes, Lena said. Grant's fingers tightened on the page. Bag the sketchbook, he said, and the letter. Paul frowned. We don't bag employee property without a report. Then write one. Lena looked at Marissa. You know I didn't take anything. Marissa's lipstick had faded at the center. This hotel cannot be accused of mishandling investor material. Owen set down the crate. I saw her draw it. Grant turned. You saw what you wanted to see. I saw her hands. No one moved. Then Marissa folded the letter once, not along its original crease, and slid it into a clear sleeve. Lena stared at the new bend across her mother's name. Paul held out a clipboard. Ms. Brooks, sign that these items were collected. Lena took the pen. Her fingers would not settle around it. Grant tucked the menu under his arm. Now we find out how far this goes. The elevator opened, and Victor Harlan stepped out before Lena could sign. Victor Harlan stepped from the elevator at 1:09 p.m., phone glowing in his hand. He looked at the clear sleeve in Marissa's grip, then at Lena beside locker 17 with a pen above Paul Sutter's clipboard. "What is this?" Victor asked. Grant moved first. "A containment issue." Lena watched his eyes drop to her gray sketchbook. Marissa said, "We found project-related drawings in Ms. Brooks's locker." "You searched her locker?" "With security present," Grant said, "after she introduced an unauthorized sketch into a closed investor discussion." Paul cleared his throat. "I advised a report first." Grant ignored him. "The issue is possession." The corridor light flickered over dented lockers. Behind the laundry wall, dryers thumped in slow circles. Victor held out his hand. "Let me see." Grant gave him the sketchbook, but kept the folded menu. Victor opened to the harbor line pages. Tower, bridge, wider brace, small X. "This is extensive," Victor said. "It's mine." "That is not the question." "It should be." Marissa's mouth tightened. "Lena, do not make this worse." Owen stood near the crate. "Mr. Harlan, she drew the menu in front of us. She didn't copy it." Victor did not look up. "Were you assigned to that room?" "No, sir." "Then why were you there?" "Water service." Grant smiled. "Everyone has a reason after the fact." Victor turned another page. Evelyn's letter waited in the sleeve, the new crease cutting through her signature. "My mother's letter isn't hotel property," Lena said. Grant lifted the sleeve. "It references early harbor language. It references what was taken from her." Marissa inhaled sharply. "Enough." Grant spoke into the pause. "Remove her from duty pending review. If investors see this spiral, they will question every document." "Every document?" Owen said. "It was in her locker with crackers." Victor closed the sketchbook. "Ms. Brooks will be suspended with pay until source is established." Grant turned. "With pay?" "For now." Suspended still meant disabled badge, erased schedule, and whispers arriving before truth. Marissa held out the clipboard. "Sign receipt for collected items." "No." "I'll sign that you took them. I won't sign that they prove theft." Victor looked at her. "Careful." Lena pulled out her phone. Raymond Brooks's name filled the cracked screen. "Call him. Tell him before someone else does." Voices approached behind the service door. Lena pressed the side button. The screen went black. "I'll be careful," she said. "But I won't lie." Victor handed the sketchbook to Paul. "Secure both items in the office safe. No one opens them without Ms. Shaw or me present." Grant's jaw moved. "That delays the review." "It preserves it." Paul took the sketchbook gently. Lena noticed. It almost hurt more. Marissa unclipped Lena's staff badge. The plastic tab snapped against her uniform. "Collect your coat," Marissa said, "then leave through staff exit B." Owen stepped forward. "I'll walk." "No," Lena said. She reached into the locker for her rain jacket. Her fingers brushed crackers, spare flats, the ordinary things she expected tomorrow. At the bottom, under the rubber mat, a loose pencil rolled free and stopped against Victor Harlan's polished shoe. At 2:43 p.m., Owen Price watched the security footage with the sound turned all the way down. The office behind reservations had no window, only a humming printer, 2 monitors, and a clock that clicked too loudly. Paul Sutter stood by the door. Carolyn Reed sat in Marissa's chair, coat wet at the shoulders. Run it again, Carolyn said. Owen dragged the clip back to 12:04. On screen, Lena knelt near the fallen folders. Her hands moved quickly, not grabbing, not hiding, just placing each sheet where it belonged. Paul leaned closer. She doesn't put anything in her apron. No, Owen said. Watch page 42. Silent Lena lifted the sheet from the coffee spill. Grant's hand entered the frame. She passed it to him. He slid it upside down into the folder. Pause, Caroline said. Owen froze the image. Lena's face was turned away, but her hands were clear. Open palms. Empty. Can you export this? I'm not supposed to without Marissa. Marissa suspended the person in the video. Paul shifted. Hotel policy also says employee property is logged before removal, correct? Paul looked at the sleeve. Evelyn Brooks's letter showed a hard new crease. Correct. Caroline reached for the sketchbook, then stopped. Where is Ms. Brooks? Staff exit B, Owen said. She waits under the awning. Call her. Owen dialed. It rang twice, then voicemail. He typed, Please don't leave. Someone is looking at footage. Paul's radio hissed. Outside the door, an elevator chimed. Caroline opened the sketchbook with 2 fingers. The first drawings were not of harbor line. They were hotel rooms, drainage channels, window seals, a wheelchair ramp redrawn 6 ways. She wasn't chasing a tower, Carolyn said. Owen shook his head. She fixes things nobody pays her to fix. Carolyn turned a page and stopped. There, in graphite, was Harbor Line's east side. 3 dates sat in the corner. Not today. The oldest was 17 months earlier. Paul exhaled. Before Grant brought the model here. Before the investor packet, Owen said. Caroline lifted her phone. No, Paul said. She lowered it. Then document it. He pulled an incident form from a drawer. The door opened without a knock. Grant Keller stepped in. Why is an investor in a security office? Caroline closed the sketchbook. The boardroom gave me incomplete answers. Grant looked at Owen. You are housekeeping support, not legal counsel. Owen reddened. I saw her draw. You saw a performance. Paul placed one hand on the evidence sleeve. Mr. Harlan said no one opens these without him or Ms. Shaw. Grant smiled. I am the project architect. Not Mr. Harlan, Paul said. For the first time all day, Grant had to wait. Carolyn stood. Who had access to early Harbor Line submissions? Grant blinked once. That predates my contract. That isn't an answer. It is the only one you need from me. Owen's phone buzzed. A message from Lena lit the screen. I'm outside. Don't risk your job. He looked at Caroline. She read it and said, Tell her this is no longer only her job. The printer spat out the frozen image. Lena's silent hands over the scattered pages, empty and precise. The timestamp printed dark enough for anyone to read. At 3:18 p.m., the archive fax arrived with a sound like paper being pulled from a wound. Caroline Reed stood over the machine in the hotel business center while Owen watched the hallway. Paul had gone to secure the sketchbook, and Grant Keller had vanished. The first page slid out crooked. City of Seattle Planning Intake, 2008. The ink was pale, but the stamped date held. Caroline lifted it. Evelyn Brooks, she read. Owen's mouth went dry. Lena's mother. Preliminary coastal concept. Harbor pedestrian span. Transfer core revision. Her finger stopped on a margin note. Same language. The room smelled of toner, wet coats, and burnt coffee. Rain dragged silver lines down the glass. Samuel Finch's voice crackled from Caroline's phone. I found 3 submissions under Brooks, 2 rejected as incomplete, 1 transferred to a partner review file. Which partner? Caroline asked. A name was removed in the scan record. The paper file may still exist, but it's off-site. Can you send everything? Owen asked. I already did. And Ms. Reed? Yes. There's a correction on page 6. Whoever drew your bridge should have seen it. The fax coughed out page 6. A red pencil mark had faded to rust, but the line was clear. Wider transfer before bridge load. Owen whispered. She knew before she walked in. No, Caroline said. Her mother knew. At staff exit B, Lena stood under the awning, jacket zipped to her chin. Cars hissed through puddles. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from Raymond and 1 unsent message. I'm fine. Victor Harlan came through the service door alone. Lena straightened. I was told to leave. I know. Then I'm leaving. Ms. Brooks. She stopped because he said her name without reading it off a badge. Victor held the faxed page in a folder. Did your mother work on Harbor Line? She tried to. That is not an answer. It's the one I had growing up. Lena looked at the faded line. She kept boxes under her bed. When I asked why, she said paper remembers better than people. Victor glanced back at the hotel. Why didn't you bring this forward before today? To whom? Her voice stayed level. The architect whose name was on her lines? The manager who checks my pockets for pencils? You? A bus groaned at the curb. Victor looked away first. I dismissed you too quickly, he said. Lena waited. I need you inside for a review. No. The word surprised him. Lena touched the empty place where her badge had been. My mother spent years asking rooms like yours to listen. They kept drawings and let her become difficult. I won't stand in another room so you can decide whether I sound useful. Victor's ring clicked against the folder. Behind him, Caroline opened the door. Victor, Naomi Shaw is on her way. Grant's assistant sent over an email chain. What chain? The one where Grant asked for archived coastal language before he joined publicly. Victor's face barely moved, but Owen saw it from the hallway. The first crack in a wall built to look like judgment. Lena's phone buzzed again. Raymond. This time, she answered. Dad, she said softly, I need you to find Mom's blue box. Victor stood in the rain spray beside the service door, holding the old fax like it might burn through his hand. At 4:07 p.m., the conference table had been cleared of coffee cups and dressed with microphones. Lena sat at the far end, in her rain jacket because no one had returned her badge. Her gray sketchbook lay in the center beside Evelyn's faxed pages, sleeves, and the folded banquet menu. Naomi Shaw arrived with a leather folder and silver glasses, her thin braid pinned tight. No one speaks over anyone, she said. No one touches documents unless I ask. Mr. Keller, sit. Grant remained standing. This is absurd. Then it will be brief. Victor sat opposite Lena. Caroline placed the printed security still beside the menu. Owen waited by the wall. Paul stood near the door. Naomi opened the folder. Ms. Brooks, did you remove Harbor Line material from this hotel? No. Did you access Mr. Keller's private files? No. Grant leaned back. She has sketches of my project. Lena looked at the table. I have sketches of a problem. Caroline slid the still forward. At 12:04, she reordered loose pages in public view. Her apron remains visible. Her hands remain empty. Grant smiled. A silent video proves little. It proves you put page 42 in upside down, Owen said. The room shifted toward him. He swallowed. She caught the coffee spill. I saw her draw the menu from the model and from the question, not from a file. Grant tapped the table. An intern's admiration is not expertise. Lena's fingers found her jacket pocket. Raymond had texted a photo of the blue box. Found it. Naomi turned to her. Why did you recognize the truss issue? For a moment, the lamps hummed louder than the rain. My mother drew bridges on grocery bags, Lena said. On prescription envelopes. She said a load has to be given somewhere honest to go. Victor's eyes lifted. After she left drafting work, she cleaned offices at night. Sometimes she brought home discarded plan copies, not to steal, to study what they kept. Grant folded his arms. A biography does not establish authorship. No, Lena said, but it explains why her work was under my bed for 12 years. Naomi opened Evelyn's letter. The new crease across the signature flashed under the lamp. Caroline turned the page so the bend faced down. Naomi read the date, project title, and margin note. These predate Mr. Keller's public contract by 18 years. Grant's chair scraped. Preliminary language circulates. Ideas evolve. Who gave you access? Naomi asked. I reject the premise. Victor spoke for the first time. Answer her. Grant's gaze moved to the glass model. I reviewed legacy concepts. Were Evelyn Brooks's materials among them? Caroline asked. Grant did not answer quickly enough. The air tightened around the pause. Lena opened Raymond's message. In the photo, a blue storage box sat on his kitchen table, drawings stacked beneath reading glasses. She placed the phone beside the sketchbook. My father found the rest. Can he bring them? Naomi asked. He's on his way. Grant stood. You are letting a suspended maid derail a billion-dollar closing with a family scrapbook. Lena looked at him. You called it a scrapbook because you're afraid to call it a file. No one spoke after that. Outside the glass wall, the elevator indicator lit and began climbing. At 4:29 p.m., the elevator opened on Raymond Brooks with a black cane, a blue box against his chest. Lena stood so fast her chair struck the table. Dad, I found it. His coat was buttoned wrong, rain in his gray hair. Your mother labeled it baking pans. Nobody stole baking pans. Paul offered to carry the box. Raymond let go after touching the lid. Naomi Shaw cleared space by the microphones. Mr. Brooks, do you consent to review? Raymond looked at Grant Keller. If her name stays on every page. It will, Naomi said. Grant laughed softly. This is theater. Victor did not turn. Sit down, Grant. Old tape peeled from the first folder with a dry whisper. Paper dust lifted into the lamplight. Lena smelled cedar, closet air, and graphite from nights when her mother drew after midnight. Naomi raised a sheet. In the upper corner, careful pencil read, Evelyn Brooks. Caroline set the archive facts beside it. Same span geometry. Owen leaned from the wall. Same correction. Grant studied the sheets. That proves a similar concept existed. It does not prove I used it. Naomi turned her laptop. On March 8, 2023, you asked for legacy coastal bridge language, especially Brooks annotations. 4 days later, you wrote, keep attribution out until ownership is clean. That meant firm ownership. Lena looked at the whiteboard. The tray held black, blue, and red markers. She picked up red. Victor watched. Ms. Brooks? You asked what was wrong. Grant pushed back his chair. No one asked for a classroom. I did, Victor said. Lena uncapped the marker. The chemical smell cut through coffee and wet wool. Her hand steadied. This is the current load path. She drew tower, bridge, and narrow transfer line. It assumes the bridge behaves like a hallway. Ethan Rowe bent over his tablet. But it pulls sideways. Yes, in crosswind, it asks the tower to twist. When the June angle changed, this brace should have widened into the service core. She tapped Evelyn's page. My mother marked that years ago. Grant stood. That is oversimplified. Then correct it. His mouth opened. No words came. Rain sounded loud against the glass. Lena wrote Evelyn Brooks in red at the top of the board. Naomi clicked to another message. Mr. Keller's assistant confirms the Brooks scans were requested before the revised presentation. Victor rubbed his ring. Grant. I saved a dormant concept, Grant said. Firms do that. You removed a name, Caroline said. It was not commercially relevant. Raymond gave one short laugh. My wife stopped drawing because men told her she was not commercially relevant. Lena kept her eyes on the board. Victor stood. Can the flaw be fixed? Yes. What does that require? The project pauses. Author history is corrected. Engineering is independently reviewed. Lena capped the marker. And nobody calls my mother's work a housekeeping accident again. Grant gathered his papers. You are choosing sentiment over certainty. Victor faced the red name. No, I'm finally noticing who brought certainty into the room. Grant reached for his folder, but Paul placed a hand over it. Ms. Shaw said documents stay. For the first time all afternoon, Grant Keller had nothing in his hands. At 5:02 p.m., the empty chair at the end of the table looked louder than Grant Keller had. His name card remained tilted beside a glass of untouched water. Paul had escorted him to a side office while Naomi copied his files. No one called it removal. They called it procedure. Victor stood before the press backdrop meant for the signing ceremony. Beneath Harbor Line waited a blank line where signatures were supposed to go. Caroline leaned near Lena. You don't have to stand up there. I want the papers fixed, Lena said. Victor heard her. They will be. Before cameras. The cameras are outside. Then they'll wait. Marissa stood by the side door. When Lena glanced over, Marissa looked down first. Naomi returned with 2 pages. Grant Keller is suspended from Project Authority pending review. Attribution review begins tonight. And the hotel? Caroline asked. The search of Ms. Brooks's locker and employment action will be reviewed by outside counsel. Marissa swallowed. I followed risk protocol. Paul said, there was no report before the search. Victor buttoned his jacket. Bring them in. Reporters entered with rain on their shoulders and phones raised. Tessa Malloy, 39, with black hair and a red notebook, stepped to the front. Mr. Harlan, is the signing delayed? Yes, Victor said. For how long? Until we know the building deserves the ground it is taking. Pens moved. Victor turned toward Lena. This is Lena Brooks. Earlier today, Ms. Brooks identified a flaw in the Harbor Line presentation. We did not listen quickly enough. Tessa asked, Is Ms. Brooks part of the design team? No, Victor said. Lena looked at him. He corrected himself. Not yet, and that answer is part of the problem. Victor continued. Materials reviewed this afternoon indicate that Evelyn Brooks, Ms. Brooks's late mother, contributed concepts excluded from project history. We are pausing the deal. A reporter asked, Is this an admission? Naomi stepped forward. It is an announcement of investigation and preservation. Tessa looked past Victor. Ms. Brooks, do you accept Mr. Harlan's apology? The room went still. Lena saw the empty chair, saw the crease across her mother's letter, saw her badge beside a microphone. I accept corrected records, she said. I accept my mother's name where it belongs. Tessa's pen stopped. And personally? Personally, I would like my sketchbook back. Paul moved, but Naomi lifted a hand. After documentation. Tonight? Victor said. Marissa stepped forward. Lena, Lena did not move toward her. Marissa's voice lowered. I thought I was protecting the hotel. Raymond looked up from the blue box. Hotels don't need protection from maids. No one laughed. Victor faced the cameras again. Ms. Brooks will not be terminated. The suspension is withdrawn. If she agrees, she will be retained as an independent visual consultant during review. Lena heard consultant the way she had once heard maid. Independent, she said. Victor nodded. Independent. The rain softened against the windows. Grant's chair stayed empty, its water glass catching the light, while Naomi slid a fresh document across the table with Evelyn Brooks's name typed on the first line. At 6:11 p.m., the new notice arrived from the printer still warm. Naomi Shaw held it by the corners so the ink would not smear. Employee property, complaints, and public conduct. The words looked too clean for the hallway where Lena had handed over her key 5 hours earlier. Marissa Vale stood by the staff door, her name badge replaced by a visitor sticker. Victor Harlan read the notice once. This is a beginning. It is a page, Lena said. A page can disappear. Naomi nodded. Then we add witnesses, filing, and a copy outside hotel control. Paul Sutter stood near the laundry carts. Security does not open lockers without written cause, employee presence, and outside review. Outside HR, Lena said. Owen stepped from the elevator with a toolbox. Maintenance gave me screws. Victor took the notice. Where should it go? The fluorescent light buzzed. A dryer thumped behind the wall. Cleaner could not cover damp cotton. Beside the staff door, Lena said, where people look before they swallow something. Owen held the notice against the wall. Paul marked holes with a pencil. Ms. Brooks, Victor said, the fund will create an authorship review program for anyone whose work enters a file without their name. Who runs it? Naomi's office. No, Lena said. The screw gun stopped. If your office harmed someone, your office should not be the only place they report harm. Caroline Reed said, Independent reviewer, annual report, anonymous intake. Victor turned to Marissa. You remain on leave while today's search and suspension are reviewed. I understand, Marissa said. I made you the cost. Raymond Brooks sat with the blue box on his knees. Fear is not a policy. Owen drove the first screw in. Housekeepers gathered at the corridor's end, pretending to sort towels. Victor looked at them. This notice is effective tonight. A woman with gray braids asked, Effective for managers too? Paul answered before Victor could. Especially managers. A breath moved through the hallway. Not laughter. Not yet. Lena stepped closer. Section 3 read, No employee shall be corrected, searched, suspended, or publicly shamed in front of guests or clients without documented cause and witness review. Her throat tightened at the word shamed. Victor spoke quietly. I thought saving the deal meant controlling the room. Lena touched the notice. Rooms remember who was quiet in them. Caroline handed Lena a folder. Draft consultant agreement. Independent. Your rate is blank. Under scope of work, visual systems analysis, authorship review support, design integrity documentation. Raymond tapped the blue box. Your mom would ask if parking is included. For the first time that day, Lena almost laughed. Naomi looked down the hall. May we use Evelyn's name in the statement? Lena glanced at her father. He lifted one drawing, the red correction line visible in weak hallway light. Yes, Lena said, but not as a tragic footnote, as an author. Owen tightened the last screw. The notice sat flat beside the staff door. Outside, cameras waited in the lobby. Inside, employees stood under the buzzing light, reading rules that had arrived too late for the morning, but just in time for whoever walked in tomorrow. 3 months later, The silver tray was back on the table. Not in the boardroom, not beneath Victor Harlan's finger. It sat on a workbench in Lena Brooks's new studio, holding pencils, binder clips, a chipped mug, and the folded menu Owen had rescued from the file. Lena turned the harbor line drawing toward Raymond. Afternoon light crossed the small office and touched the blue box at his feet. "Dad," she said, "they filed it this morning." Raymond adjusted his glasses with both hands. The tremor in his fingers made the paper flutter. At the title block, beneath revised concept history, Evelyn Brooks appeared in clean black type. He touched the name once. "Your mother hated forms," he said. "I know." She would have complained about the font. Lena smiled, but neither of them moved. Outside, tires whispered through wet streets. Inside, the heater clicked, and the paper made a soft sound under Raymond's thumb. At the Alder Crown, the staff door no longer opened onto silence. The notice Naomi had printed that night had become a framed policy with an outside review number below it. Paul Sutter now trained security staff with one sentence: "A key is not consent." Owen Price transferred to design operations at the fund. On his first day, he sent Lena a photo of his desk, 2 monitors, and a sticky note that read, "Watch the hands." Marissa Vale did not return as manager. The hotel reassigned her to training after outside counsel found she had acted from fear of embarrassment, not evidence. She wrote Lena one letter. "I was wrong before I was cruel," it said. Lena folded it and placed it in the blue box, not beside Evelyn's drawings, but under the lid. Grant Keller's name disappeared from the Tower website first, then from the investor packet. The review recorded dates, access, omissions, and signatures. His firm lost Harbor Line and faced professional sanctions. When Tessa Malloy asked Lena if that felt like victory, Lena said, "It feels like paperwork telling the truth." Victor Harlan came to the studio on a Tuesday without assistance. His coat was damp at the shoulders. "The scholarship board approved Evelyn's name," he said. "For drafters, cleaners, clerks, anyone whose work enters a room before they do." Lena slid a contract across the workbench. "And the authorship program? Independent reviewer, annual public report, anonymous intake. Caroline chairs the first oversight meeting." "Good." Victor looked at the silver tray full of pencils. He recognized it. She saw that he did. "I kept thinking about that sound," he said. "The glass hitting the edge." "So did I." He accepted the distance in her answer. "Harbor Line breaks ground in spring if the redesign clears review." "It will need more than a redesign." "It has one." She signed the consultant agreement, then turned the pen toward him with the cap on. That evening, Lena and Raymond visited the waterfront. The rain had lifted. Construction lights glowed behind fencing, and a temporary sign listed every credited contributor. Evelyn's name was not large. It did not need to be. Raymond rested one hand on the fence. "She got back in," he said. Lena watched the water move around the pilings. "No," she answered softly. "They stopped keeping her out." A gull crossed the pale sky. In Lena's bag, the sketchbook pressed against the old letter, flat now. The lines stayed. If this story stayed with you, share in the comments whether you have ever seen someone ignored because of their uniform, job title, accent, age, or quiet nature. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one holding the detail that changes everything. Share this story with someone who believes dignity should not depend on status, and that justice means more when it changes the rules for the next person too. Subscribe for more stories about quiet strength, hidden courage, and the kind of truth that forces powerful rooms to listen. And if you know someone still waiting for their name to be seen, send this to them.